So this story begins with the first artist that I ever met. That's my mother. She discovered very early on that that she loved to paint and she loved to draw. And so she's from Colombia, and she was going to an all-girls Catholic school. She was about 14 years old, and she told me the story that one of her assignments in art class one night was to draw her favorite animal, which was a horse. So she went home, and she probably spent about 30 minutes, sketching out this horse and shading it out to perfect proportions. Brought it in the next day, and Sister Carmelita takes one look at it, grabs her fat red pencil, and gives her a 0. And so my mom's like, "Why did I get a 0?" And she said, "Well, you cheated. Nobody can draw like that, not in this school." My mom was like, "But no, I did draw it." She says, "Well, no, now you're lying to me? You want me to put you on detention?" So my mother took out a blank sheet of paper and before her eyes, and much more quickly, sketched out the exact same horse in the exact same position. And that's the last time that nun talked smack to my mother. So fast forward about 15 years. She's now in Los Angeles, and what began as a visit to her sister, my aunt, ended up becoming, where she spent the rest of her life. And she had the good fortune of joining a little boutique shop called Graphic Process. And if you can imagine it, this was essentially the precursor to graphic design. So she became an expert at taking, for example, black and white portraits, and sometimes she'd get these things where like a third of a man's head was just mauled off because it got lost somewhere en route. And she would reconstruct it. Or she would take a black and white image, a landscape, a still life, and she would colorize it acrylically. And one of the things that she did, it being Los Angeles, is that she did a lot of work for the film studios. So we'd be rolling down like Santa Monica Boulevard or Sunset or Wilshire, and she'd be looking up at the billboards and she'd go, "Esa es de la Universal. Esa es de la Paramount." That one, I did that one for Paramount. I did that one for Universal, and Rain Man, that was a good one. Back to the Future, that sucked. And she was so good at what she did that her colleagues started calling her Wonder Woman, which for me was very apt, because to me, she wasn't Wonder Woman. She was like 10 Wonder Woman. Like God could not hold a candle to my mother. And on one of these nights, my mom, there's talk of doing the double shift. A lot of women, 9 to 5, and then they come home, they take care of the kids, and they're feeding them and cleaning the house. Well, my mom had a third shift, and that was what she would do after all that. And that's when she worked on her freelance work. And on one of these occasions, I'd always go over and I'd say goodnight to her. And I was like, "Mom, what color are my eyes?" And she looks at me with her undivided attention. "Todos. All colors." I was like, "Not for real, Mom. I don't need the artistic answer. It's a simple question. Just tell me what color my eyes are." So she did the same thing, and of course, she replied with the same word. "Todos. All colors." So I lost that battle. It wasn't as fierce as the battle that I had to fight when she was killed in a freak bicycle accident in her native city of Manizales. And I won't say that my world came crumbling down. It was more like this very slow, dull, painful decrescendo into oblivion. And I was lost. I was completely disoriented, but one of the things that held me together was actually the women in my family, so my aunts and my grandmother, and I would take advantage of every visit that I took to say, "Look, can you tell me something about my mother that I don't know?" And so on one such occasion, my grandmother, despite being bedridden, didn't say anything. She just kind of looked into the chest that was next to her bed and pulls out this notebook. And on the front of it, on the cover, it says, "Mari Quintero," and it says, "Drawing." So I'm like, I've never seen this before, And so I open it up, and I open straight onto the page of 2 pencil-drawn, majestic, muscular horses. And it was all I could do not to just bathe them with my tears, to which my grandmother said, "Don't cry. It'll give you a headache." Which was her macho way of saying, "I feel you, but it's going to be all right." And it was all right. You know, life went on. So much so that fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, and my brother was visiting with his wife and their little boy, who's 2.5. And they've been going through their own drama themselves. So on one day I said, you know, why don't y'all like go have a date? I'll take care of the little man. And so they went and did their thing here in the city, all the tourist traps you can think of, and I drove him to the beach. Because I realized they live in Eastern Washington, he's probably never seen the beach. So we go there, and little man's like, as soon as his toes hit the sand, he just like bolted running, right? And he ran, and the look on his face was like, it wasn't even bliss, it was like awe, like what? Like, it's like, I'm running into infinity, you know? And at some point I had to pry him away from this adventure, and I grab him in my arms, and I'm like, Papa, hey, the sun's gonna set. It was like 4:45. It's like, come, let me show you this. So we look into the sun, and I go, isn't it incredible? And he goes, it's incredible. I say, Papa, what color do you see? He says, red. I say, is that it? What other color do you see? He says, yellow. Is that it? So, blue. And as he names off all the colors that he knows, green and purple and orange, all I could hear was my mother's one-word answer when I asked her what color my eyes were. Todos. Thank you.